Do you have some survivor guilt yourself? Can you tell us your story? How you got out of Afghanistan?
As I mentioned, it's been a long journey for me to make it into the United States. Uh, to give you a few backgrounds, my father worked for U.S. government and U.S. forces over a decade, and then when then when the former Afghan government or Afghanistan government collapsed and the power with the Taliban seized the power, it was difficult for me, for my family to live in Afghanistan because the Taliban start murdering, start executing whoever worked with the U.S. forces, with the U.S. government, like target killing. Um, and we knew we have to like escape our house because there's no way that we can survive in Afghanistan. So we we go to the airport and try to escape through airport. The airport was the only leave Afghanistan. All other
Mhm.
places were closed. The borders were closed. They were all under control of the Taliban. And if some of you may notice or see in the news, outside the Kabul airport was a chaos. There was a crowds of people. Everyone was fighting for their lives. Everyone was trying to get into airport and then uh, leave the country. And then on that chaos, I kind of get separated from my parents, from my family, because it was so crowded. People were like pushing, pulling one another, and there were like a massive amount of people. At one point, I had this feeling that I do have lack of oxygen. I cannot breathe, so I had to like make my way out of the crowd so I can survive, like I can breathe. And then when I look back, I realized that I cannot see my parents. It took me hours to wandering around looking for a familiar face, looking for my parents, for my family, but there was no track of it. There was thousands of people, even
And you were
many.
17 or 16
uh,
roughly at this time?
I was 18 at
18, okay.
best, and then it was heartbroken, and I thought that I'm not gonna see my parents ever again, and then there was no way that I can contact with my parents or my family because we all left our house and escaped, and soon after that, our house, our car, everything were like being seized by the Taliban. They were like in search of our house for my father, and then they couldn't, but they they take it away everything. So we weren't having a specific locations so that we can go on back to some same location and find one another. Because my father said that we have to like constantly changing our locations for the rest of our life, as long as we are staying in Afghanistan. And it was difficult because they also destroyed their phones because they don't want to be like tracked by the Taliban. And at that point, we had no idea what kind of technologies the Talibans are using. As I mentioned, it was the collapse of Afghanistan government was a shock for all of us. We did not anticipate that would have happened. It was so quickly, so sudden happened. Fear like was dominating every aspect of your life. You didn't know if they're like listening to the phone calls, they're tracking the WhatsApp messages, what they are doing, how they did it. Like it was still the questions that everyone asking it. So, and I had this no way of contacting my parents. And then I received a text message from my colleagues from Asian University for Women. We were all students in Bangladesh, but because of COVID started and the COVID lockdown, if anyone is familiar with. So we forced to go back in Afghanistan and attempt to study online. But some of us has difficulties studying online because in Afghanistan we had lack of electricity because the Taliban were constantly sabotaging the power facility, and we did not have access to stable internet connection. So without those two components, it was very difficult to continue your studies online. But somehow our university was organizing these masses, 7 masses to take us to the airport and then eventually leave the Kabul airport in a charter flight.